Welcome to Paris! I'm Lindsey Tramuta, a journalist and author who's been in Paris for nearly 20 years. And today, I'm going to take you on a Michelin guide journey to 4 different bistros that will help us talk about the changing face of the bistro. Come with me. Oh, shit.
But first, coffee. Let's start with a slow morning at Maison Fleuret. It's a charming little coffee shop in a former bookstore in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, which was historically the city's literary heart. The owners have kept walls of books as an homage to the space's past. So come for that, come for the cakes that are made fresh each morning, the delicious coffee.
Hard to beat that.
And linger with a book. Now let's go to lunch, and I'll tell you what you need to know about the bistro, because ultimately that's why we're here. For one, it isn't like the bustling brasserie. It actually came to Paris in the 19th century with migration from the French provinces. But you can easily identify it by its smaller and cozier dining rooms, the menu of slow-cooked and very hearty dishes. And it quickly became part of the city's DNA. Allard, which opened in 1932, is a great example of this. It's a Michelin-selected restaurant. And just so you know, like most restaurants in the guide, it doesn't have a star or a Bib Gourmand distinction, but it is recommended by Michelin inspectors for the quality of its cooking. Here, it's all about those classics and comforting dishes. So you'll find things like escargot and duck foie gras confit, or the star of the show, the duckling with bright olives.
Wow.
Everything's gotten a lighter touch since Alain Ducasse took over in 2013.
It's easy to understand why game and poultry is such a staple of the bistro. These are long-cooked, deeply nourishing. It's flavorful, it's tender on the outside with a crisp skin, and the olives are a nice contrast.
The chef behind all of it is Lisa Desforges, and she carries on the tradition of this bistro's founder, Marthe Allard.
Ma contribution, c'est garder les traditions et du coup garder l'héritage qu'il y a eu ici. Et sur cette part de tradition-là, on va moderniser le dressage, moderniser un peu la sauce en l'allégeant, moderniser le taillage des légumes. On dessale, on désucre, et ça, c'est des volontés du chef d'Alain Ducasse.
It would really be a shame to come to the neighborhood and not take a digestive walk to the Musée Delacroix. It's in the very quiet square Furstenberg, where Eugène Delacroix lived and worked until his death. These intimate house museums that I personally love because they're far from the crowds of the Louvre. It's a much slower, calmer experience. I better tell you. For Apéro Hour, I wanted someplace more contemporary. After the speakeasy heyday in Paris, the city's cocktail scene has really evolved with places like this, Crevant, and it's the perfect spot before dinner or for a nightcap. I wanted to know from the barman what I would be drinking and why it's so special.
C'est focus sur un thé de la maison Ogata, qui est un thé fermenté. Et à l'intérieur, on a rajouté un saké qui a des notes légèrement chocolatées et un cognac quasi non vieilli qui a des notes d'amandes blanches et fleurs blanches. Il est assez rond et puissant en même temps.
Ouais, c'est ça. Santé!
This was fantastic, but it is time to make a move because I have reservations at Colvert, another fantastic restaurant in the neighborhood.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, bienvenue.
Merci. Okay, so it looks like a bistro, it feels like a bistro, but it's been reinvented a little bit.
So what's really interesting about this, the chef takes what is usually a quite simple, classic bistro starter and really takes it to the next level.
The chef Baptiste Borderie brings a more modern flair through his work with sauces, flavor pairings, and textures especially.
So key to this dish, besides what's inside the shell of the pastry, is really the dough itself. You want something that's very crispy and buttery and feels very enveloping, and in this case, it is exactly that.
I had the chef sit down with me to tell me a little bit more.
Très bien, et vous?
Aujourd'hui, la cuisine se modernise énormément. Et nous, en fait, ce qu'on veut, c'est garder ces codes de bistrot, apporter toutes les connaissances qu'il y a tout autour aujourd'hui. Justement, alléger les produits, apporter de l'acidité, casser tout ce gras qu'il y avait avant, mais garder cette générosité et je dirais ces recettes classiques.
The clafoutis for dessert was a really nice touch because instead of sour cherries, he incorporated plums and served it with a scoop of almond cardamom ice cream on top, which I found very warm and a little bit spicy.
This has been a very full day of eating, and I'm starting to get tired, but I think I'm gonna head back to my hotel, kick my feet up, and then you're gonna come with me all over again tomorrow. I hope that sounds good. Hey, come inside.
Where am I? Well, I woke up at Maison Proust, one of the many hotels with a Michelin key, which is basically the equivalent of a star for hotels. Very obviously, as the name implies, inspired by the world of Marcel Proust. You might know him from the legendary book In Search of Lost Time. It's super romantic. There's an underground spa and a heating pool that you can privatize. And it just so happens to have one of my favorite cocktail bars, where Colin Field, the former head bartender at the Ritz, makes a special appearance a few times a month. So pay attention to that. That starts with lunch in the 20th arrondissement. In this particular spot of the neighborhood, it's very calm and pretty residential. It feels almost like a little village in the big city. We're headed to Dandelion, which I've loved since Antoine Villard and Morgane Souris opened it last year. It feels a bit like someone's beautifully designed home in the countryside. It's also what you might call a neo-bistro. To recap, the bistronomy movement was all about chefs taking French technique and making the atmosphere and the dishes more relaxed. So everything got more creative. Dandelion is somewhere on that bistronomy spectrum.
Dandelion, on l'a vraiment imaginé comme un bistrot moderne. On le voulait très parisien. Mais en même temps, c'est un bistrot moderne parce qu'on a voulu faire une patte de chef dedans aussi. C'est un peu une cuisine d'auteur. On ne voulait pas mettre de nappe ni avoir un service trop en poulet. Mais dans l'assiette, que ça se ressente. Puis derrière, il y avait aussi de la gastronomie.
I was going to be kicking off my meal with an elegant raw scallop dish, so I asked Morgane, who's also the sommelière, for her suggestions of what to pair with it.
Donc je vous propose ici un chardonnay de Bourgogne du domaine Chantrève avec une note de pêche blanche. Je vous fais goûter agrumes et une finale élégante, assez minérale. J'ai beaucoup de vins aussi allemands, italiens, espagnols qui s'accordent parfaitement avec les saveurs, les épices qu'utilise Antoine dans sa cuisine.
I didn't stick around in the 20th for all that long because I had some other things to do in the Marais. So I started with a sweet snack right in my favorite green space in Paris, the Place des Vosges. It's among the oldest planned squares and it was built for Henry IV. That's your little history lesson. But around it, you've got Grand Hotel Particulier, you've got art galleries, a few cafes, and as of this summer, De Beauve et Galets.
Bonjour.
It's best known for having invented the chocolate that one could bite into instead of drink, and that was designed originally for Marie Antoinette. Kind of a lucky girl.
Ooh, pardon.
A quick walk away, another cultural outing. Hunting and Nature Museum is surprising and it's wonderful, and it's where ancient and contemporary works explore the relationship between humans and the living world. And you honestly can't spend time in the Marais without coming here. It's an experience. It will also put you in a good location to pick up the 69 bus, which goes by a slew of monuments that you might be interested in, from the City Hall to the Louvre and all the way to the Palais Royal. And it just so happens it put me in the right spot for dinner. My last meal of this 2-day adventure is Le 19 Saint-Roch, the first solo restaurant from Pierre Tuitou. He's a chef who believes in cooking simply, but does so with an impressive level of technique and a lot of layered flavors. Let's dig in. The chef, who's French-Tunisian, took the old-school dish lièvre à la royale and flipped it on its head. In that dish, it would use hare in a traditional, almost black blood sauce. But he worked with slow-cooked beef chuck, coated in an earthy sauce made from jute mallow leaves that's commonly used in mouloukhia, a dish that's close to the chef's heart.
It's simple food in a simple setting and no fuss. It can be very precise as long as it's quick, delicious, and it changes all the time depending on what you have. We don't have plat du jour, but we change the menu daily. And even for regular guests, some that come 2 or 3 times a week, we can change as much as they come usually.
So it's a great place to be a regular.
Any place is great to be a regular, I think, but here it's quite nice as well. Everybody's treated the same, of course.
Honestly, I just love how Paris keeps surprising me after all these years. This was the perfect way to take in the old and new that make the city so exciting and so meaningful.
It's been a delicious 2 days in Paris with the Michelin Guide. I hope I've given you the inspiration you need for your own 2-day adventure in Paris.